For the cumulative portion of my course, I've decided to choose a poem named A Rope Jumping Rhyme by Margret Atwood. I'd like to start the presentation by reciting the poem. We are the maids, the ones you killed, the ones you failed. We danced in air, our bare feet twitched, it was not fair. With every goddess, queen, and bitch, from there to here you scratched your itch. We did much less than what you did, you judged us bad. You had the spear, you had the word at your command. We scrubbed the blood of our dead paramours from floors, from chairs, from stairs, from doors. We knelt in water while you stared at our bare feet. It was not fair, you licked our fear. It gave you pleasure. You raised your hand, you watched us fall. We danced on air, the ones you killed, the ones you failed. Now, this poem is written by Margret Atwood in a short novella called The Penelopiad. A little bit of background about that short novella is that actually it's written as a form of historical fiction and as something that is complementary with the epic poem Homer's Iliad. That's why, the Iliad and the Penelopiad. The Iliad is about Odysseus, and the Penelopiad, which Margret Atwood wrote, is about his wife, Penelope. Since the story of Odysseus is actually one of an adventure, he fights the Trojan War, and then after that he has an adventure of about 20 years working his way back home. But the novella Penelopiad actually twists the perspective and puts it on his wife, Penelope, and what she's actually doing back home. During the course of the 20 years that Odysseus is away, Penelope has to handle her entire kingdom while dealing with suitors who are actually trying to take her hand in marriage and therefore inherit the kingdom. So during that time, she has the 12 maids trying to protect her and help her and also deal with the suitors. When Odysseus comes back, he's furious with his wife for, possibly marrying other men during his leave, and furious with the 12 maids that actually helped her. And so he decides to actually behead each one of them. And the poem that I've chosen by Margret Atwood is actually from the perspective of these 12 maids. In terms of relation to coursework, we can analyze it from two different perspectives. One is obviously the feminist perspective, and we see that obviously Odysseus, or maybe the society of ancient Greece, is actually very misogynistic, because Penelope, who is a woman, and also her 12 maids, who are all women, actually helped keep the kingdom at peace and running for a course of 20 years, and the reward that they get is slaughter. Right? Odysseus comes after 20 years and slaughters them. And this death is actually referenced right in the beginning of the poem and at the very end of the poem. In fact, line 1 through 3 is, "We are the maids, the ones you killed, the ones you failed." Obviously, that's hinting directly towards their murder. And then at the very end, the last 3 lines of the poem are, "We danced on air, the ones you killed, the ones you failed." So obviously when the author starts the poem and ends the poem with almost the exact same words, it means they're really trying to emphasize what those words mean, and the emphasis here is the murder of the 12 maids. Now, another section that allows for feminist critique is lines 7 to 11, which states, "With every goddess, queen, and bitch, from there to here you scratched your itch. We did much less than what you did." Now, these sections are actually trying to explain the fact that Odysseus, during his various ventures, actually had many sexual relationships with various women throughout his 20 years of adventuring, but at the same time he failed to realize that the only reason the 12 maids and Penelope were housing the 110 suitors within the family's palace was to prevent the state of state of ancient Greece and Ulysses' kingdom from falling apart. And this is once again trying to highlight the fact that in many male-dominated societies that men can be hypocrites. From the feminist perspective, they're trying to show that Odysseus is a great example of the age-old thought that men can do whatever they want while women are limited within the home and are condemned if they even begin to think about relationships outside marriage. Now, another form of literary critique that this poem really lends itself to, that we study throughout the course, is Marxism. And to highlight that, I want to read lines 13 to 15. You had the spear, you had the word at your command. Now, these 3 lines obviously state that Odysseus actually had the authority over the 12 maids. And this obviously highlights the kind of capitalist structure, or the fact that there's class differences in play here. The fact that Odysseus is the rightful king, and the fact that the 12 maids are indeed just maids and servants and members of the peasant class, Odysseus as the king is literally allowed to do whatever he wants with them, in which he actually decides to end their lives. And there's actually no law or no rule designed in the society to actually punish him in any way, because he is the king, which is in the social hierarchy, or in the Marxist social hierarchy, is probably the highest position there is. And the 12 maids are members of the proletariat, which is, the lower working class. And again, it shows that, as we've studied throughout the course, that the capitalist dominates the proletariat. The maids continue to say, we scrub the blood of our dead, paramours from floors, from chairs, from stairs, from doors. So obviously, they're trying to say that even in the afterlife that they're still servants or members of the proletariat. So obviously, the poem really lends itself to Marxist critique. As an overall message, I think the poem, because it was written so recently, about a time so long ago, it's actually just trying to tell us that, we should watch out for stuff like this happening in our society, and pay attention to feminism and Marxism. And, the author, Miss Margret Atwood, is actually trying to say that we should treat women and men equally, and we should have laws that prevent the richer from dominating the poor. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time.